Welcome back to Perfectly Clear. I'm Doug Taylor, and today I'm joined by my co-producer, Angie Taylor, a clairvoyant and tarot reader who's been walking alongside me on this journey since the very first episode. This week, we're turning inward and upward into the realm of mediumship. From the feeling of being watched, to those undeniable dreams, to the moments when Spirit speaks and we know we're not alone. This one's for those of us who believe there's more beyond the veil. For another episode that you've joined me with today, and we'll get started right away.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me. So, I had a few questions if you don't mind.
No, go right ahead.
I have heard these stories a little bit in the family, but what was the moment when you first started seeing spirits?
Again, probably I've said this quite a few times on different shows that we've done during the podcast this year, and probably since I was about 4 or 5, and I was able to see spirit, a lot of passings that I didn't quite recognize at first what they were, but I knew that I physically I couldn't touch them, but I could certainly see them.
Mhm. So, I think maybe we should even rewind a little bit and clarify what is the difference, I guess, between clairvoyance or any of the clearer senses and mediumship, what being a medium is there a difference between the two?
I think for me, clairvoyance is one of the big clear senses that I experience. Um, some of the other ones, like claircognizance, just knowing, um, clairaudience, and so forth. But the big one for me is clairvoyance. And I'm able to see things. And um, as far as mediumship is concerned, I think that's more ongoing, just taking stuff in more than anything else.
Yeah, I think a good kind of item to note would be that all mediums are kind of psychic, but not all psychics are necessarily a medium.
That's a really good analogy of it. Yes, I would say so.
Because lots of us who have a clear sense, we can see, we can hear, we can feel, we can touch, we can taste, we can, have a certain amount of empathy or just a certain amount of all knowing, even. But sometimes when you have those senses, you don't necessarily see spirit. You don't necessarily see
No,
beings that are kind of just slightly beyond us. But when you do see those types of spirits, you're kind of pretty much, at least in my experience, guaranteed to have some sort of clear sense attached to that as well, so that you are able to perceive the different messages, the different intuitive forces, the different tastes and smells. You have that gift alongside them.
I think when you do see spirit, uh, I think the big thing is that there's always a message behind it,
Mhm.
and I think that's what's trying to be delivered by spirit, is that there's a message that, and it could be for someone that is in a room with you, it could be somebody you know, somebody you're thinking about, and there's a message that you have to try to dig deeper with your senses to interpret that message, and again, not just interpret it, but how you can deliver it to the person that it is intended for.
Absolutely. When you first started to see spirit, were you also experiencing clair senses, or did those two items appear separately?
Well, for me, because it happened at a very young and early age. Uh, I had to sort of take it all in and start to realize that there was more than just seeing.
Hmm.
And as far as spirit had, someone who had passed through spirit, I had to start to learn how to interpret more
Yeah.
of the clear senses.
I think that's a great question. It's one that I get asked quite a bit myself. Actually, is what does it actually look like when I'm seeing a spirit? So, what does that look like for you?
For me, it's like it's almost like a movie, because in real life, when you see something, it's in person, it's tangible, you can touch somebody.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're watching a movie on TV per se, you can see the movie, you can see the action, you can see what's happening, but you certainly can't touch it. It's not
Hmm.
tangible. And for me, when I see spirit, um, it's like the movie. I can
Yeah.
see spirit, I can see what their intent is at times.
Hmm.
um, and again, if they're trying to deliver a message, then depending on the spirit, who the message is meant for, and what in particular that message is something that I have to work a little harder on.
That's great. Yeah, it's very interesting because I kind of relate it to when I see spirits. I tend to say it's almost in my mind's eye because I know that it's not like in person. I know that it's not a human being in front of me. I know that there's a difference. But there's so many times where, especially if I'm caught off guard or if I'm, halfway between sleep and wake, if I'm really tired or depleted or I'm not paying much attention, it sometimes kind of catches you where you have to do a double take because it's so quick that you are seeing something that you know is there and you have to be like, wait, hold on. Okay, that's spirit. That's not someone in the house. So we're fine. Everything's
No.
good.
Yeah. And we experience that a lot. And I know that myself with my family, and I think a lot of that is my connection, is we've had spirit traveling through our houses
Hmm.
for decades. And at first, your mother, for instance, used to be a little nervous per se,
Hmm.
until I explained to her that this is not spirit that's going to hurt you, harm you, or scare you.
Hmm.
You have to really speak to the spirit. And you've mentioned this yourself when you were talking about different things such as smudging and
Yes.
cleansing and that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really a very interesting thing because we have to kind of separate the two, right? We've talked about this before, where you go into a restaurant and restaurants are hotspots.
For me, they are
Yeah, for me as
really
well.
hot spots. I mean,
It's really
yeah.
tough.
I mean, I've gone into restaurants, one in particular in Toronto, which is now closed, but
Hmm.
it was like, oh my God, I'd walk into that place and I could look around the room and there was people there that I'd have to get up and deliver messages to because there
Hmm.
was spirit in the restaurant directing me to that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had very similar instances. I feel like the minute I walk into a restaurant, I have to be prepared that this is going to happen. And, if I get a couple of drinks into me, I have to try and keep my guard up even through that because you start to
Yeah.
get a little relaxed and spirit starts to come through. And then they realize that they can communicate with you and they want to be even louder with you and try and get your attention a little bit more. But it's funny because we have to separate those two. You can't walk around and have conversations with people everywhere you go,
No,
right?
definitely not. But for me, the restaurant scenario is usually the older the restaurant
Yes,
that had
yes,
some sort of history to it. I mean, I can't walk into a McDonald's
yes.
and that sort of thing, or a Burger King and expect spirit. Could it happen? It could possibly happen, but it's more prevalent in an older restaurants that have been around a long time, and they themselves, that those restaurants have a history to it. And I mean, restaurants is the biggie for me. It's not the only thing, but restaurants definitely. If there's any history to the restaurant itself. For this one restaurant, it used to be on the route way back in the stagecoach
Oh
days.
wow.
And so I can only imagine the history that that could
Hmm.
speak to. So
Wow. It's so funny hearing um different experiences that are so similar.
Yeah.
I just recently even went to a restaurant with a group of people, and I looked up the restaurant in advance and I realized, okay, this is a very old historical building. You're going to have to be prepared. And the minute I walked in, yep, going down to that bathroom buried in the basement next to the cellars. I was like, oh, good Lord, just get through this. It's fine. We're going to be fine. Don't start reading too much down here. But it kind of catches you everywhere you go, right? When there's a little bit of history attached to it,
Yeah.
things linger. Spirits do linger and hold an attachment to people, places, and things.
Yeah. And when spirit comes to you, it's not a tap that you can turn off and
No.
on. And for instance, to say, well, look, I'll get back to you in 10 minutes. It's something that's happening in the moment, and you have to deal with it one way, shape, or form, whether it's acknowledging the spirit, whether it's trying to interpret if there is a message, who the message is for, what the message is, and even how you can deliver the message if it needs to be delivered.
So, with that in mind, do you have specific ways that, for you in particular, that you have a spirit communicate with you? Whether that's maybe more visually, sounds, tastes, feelings. I know you're very tactile when you read and when you connect with spirit.
For me, seeing spirit is the big thing. Um, sounds can happen, but for the most part, it's visual. And whether I see that in my mind's eye or I actually physically see that, like it was a movie, as I mentioned earlier. So for me, that's the big thing when I do see spirit or even hear spirit. We were in Mexico last year, and we were at a church, and I'm going to guess that was almost 300 years old.
Yeah.
And the spirit, as you can imagine, the spiritual connection there was quite something, because again, there's history there. There's a lot of births, deaths, baptismals, happy times, sad times. So a lot of history in that place. So it was like an onslaught of spirit at the time.
Wow. Yeah, it's very interesting. I do try to avoid um, certain places like churches. It can be quite intense. Um, but it's something that I've been asked before even is, how do I know when there's like a spirit that is completely and utterly present versus something more like residual energy, like a church, or there's
Yeah.
lots of maybe at a funeral or something, like where there's just lots of that energy right in there too. How do you differentiate?
I find spirit in that situation will reach out to me
Yeah.
and try to make contact, and give me subtle hints or subtle messages that I can interpret, and try to figure out who it's meant for. But that I find the most tangible thing of it all, if you can say that, because earlier I said when I see spirit, you can't touch it, but you can actually feel it within your hands, your fingers.
Yeah. It's funny because I've seen you have this, and I have this quite heavily as well. You get a very like physical response like that. Like when you are connecting with spirit, you get a very physical reaction to having that type of energy. So I know I get like a bit of a heaviness in my chest. Sometimes it can be a little harder to breathe.
Yes, I agree. That happens to me sometimes.
Yeah, and it tends to be when there's something very overwhelming, like when they're not leaving me alone, or when there's a large amount of spirit in that room or in that location, or attached to someone maybe who I've met or started talking with, or whatever that looks like.
And we talk about clairvoyance versus mediumship, and again, I can see things, but those are spirit relaying that with me. At the same time, I have seen dates and times, as you have at times, of events that are to come.
Yes.
As well as what's happened in the past. And I think we've talked before, is that I have been able at times to give dates and times of things to come.
Hmm.
And I'll leave it at that because some of it is a little scary, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting, especially when you're trying to offer a reading or even just offer some kind of insight into uh someone's past, present, future, or create some validation for them or some reassurance for them. Um, when you're trying to relay some messages, it can come in so many different shapes and forms and um different senses. And the one thing I get into it with my fiance quite a bit is I will say I just know. I
Yes.
tend to have that type of sense as well where I just know. I
Yeah.
can't give you a reason why. I just know.
So it could be claircognizance in this
Exactly.
situation, as it
Yeah.
more so than clairvoyance, because
Yes.
you can't explain it. You just know that that's what it
I
is.
just know.
And there's no one size fits
Mhm.
all as far as spirit delivering
Yeah.
messages or for you. It doesn't always happen the
Yes.
same way.
Yeah. It really doesn't. With all of that in mind, when it comes to, because this has been top of mind lately, just my own personal experience, I've had quite a bit of loss around me through friends, through colleagues, um, through just different avenues with that. And I've found myself offering little bits of reassurances in whatever subtle way I can.
Yes. Okay. I
To
understand.
Yeah, just to try and provide a little bit of support, provide a little bit of insight of, it's not, the table isn't set yet, or you have a little bit more time, or maybe utilize this time the best you can because time is ticking here, or, it's going to be okay. And there's a message here, or there's a message there. Um, I personally have found that mediumship can be such a powerful tool for grief. It can help support people in such an incredible way.
I agree 100%. Um, just to know that if someone is passed or is passing, that there is someone else there with them,
Yeah.
whether it's an angel
Mhm.
or whether it's a loved one that's already passed there to help that person cross over. Um, it can obviously um, give some solace to the individual that's here watching the passing or the person that has experienced the immediate loss during that crossing.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really incredible to have that type of avenue of support almost.
Or comfort to say anything else. Yes, sure.
It's an avenue that we often don't get access to.
No.
So I do try to offer that insight when I can
Yeah.
and with people who are open to receiving it, as much as possible, because I do think it's really important, um, to understand and to have that comfort and to have that reassurance or that validation or whatever that looks like. Um, because I think for me as well, it's actually really um, shaped the way that I do explore life and death. It really has shaped a lot of things. I've grown up with always being able to see spirit. I've grown up with understanding that things don't necessarily end there. You can still have a great connection. You can still have um uh that type of almost relationship
Definitely.
there.
Yes. Yep.
And it's provided a lot of comfort for me. And not to say that I don't fear death or anything like that, but I I I think I have a different view of it than a lot of other people that I know.
I would agree. We've had a number of different uh, people on the show this year and the modalities that they use. And they all, I think, say the same thing
Mhm.
basically is what you're saying, is that they see spirit, they've lived with it, they know what spirit is there for.
Mhm.
And at the same time, they all talk about passings right? Because they see spirit,
Yeah.
and in the comfort that someone who can interpret this and deliver a message can bring to some to people in general.
Yeah. Did do you think that you view your own life a little bit differently with having had this insight throughout your entirety of your life at this point? Do you view death in a different way than most people your age, do you think? Or
Well, most people my age, I guess, I don't know. I mean, when you get to this age, um, we all come to the end of our life cycles at
yeah.
some point in time. It's just a matter of when that is. For me, do I have some comfort knowing where my spirit is going to be? Yeah, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm looking forward to it necessarily tomorrow, but uh, yeah, I think I have a better understanding than possibly most people.
Mhm.
But again, I can't speak for people that are here. I can only speak for myself and for any of the spirit that I've encountered.
Wow. Yeah, that's more than fair. I think having that insight and having that connection, that relationship, and having that literal sight and sense and feeling has shifted how I view things so immensely. Um, and it's really a benefit, I think, for me to be able to have a little bit more comfortability in these types of topics and these types of, you know, a lot of people feel that talking about death is quite morbid, but I think it can be a really beautiful thing and it can help you process a lot of emotions that need to be processed. And help you work through so many different things.
It can. It can. I mean, as we as I talk to a lot of people that have been on the show, whether it has been on the show or aside, because a lot of these people I've known
Mhm.
through different meetings,
Mhm.
and we say the same thing. Everything happens for a reason. You
Absolutely.
know, our future or our life on this earth during this period of our life has already been mapped out.
Mhm.
And so everything that happens within that is happening for a
A
reason.
reason. Wow. Something that I experienced recently. So I went to a psychic fair a couple months ago. And my fiance got a reading, and I ended up going and getting a reading as well. I thought, why not? And something that happened during the reading for myself was that a specific spirit wouldn't come through. A spirit who I thought would come through wouldn't come through. Um, and luckily for me, because I have a little bit more experience with this, I wasn't bothered by it. I completely understood. It was no big deal. But when you have that happen for yourself, when you're trying to conduct a reading or you're trying to provide a little bit of insight or validation for someone, and a specific spirit that they're hoping to connect with won't come through, what do you do with that? What does that mean at the time, or does it mean nothing?
Well, first of all, again, if someone is asking for a reading, I would like to think that they are opening themselves
Hmm.
up. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. And there's a number of reasons why people do not open themselves up. Um, because it could be um, that they're dubious or
Yeah.
skeptical, could be a case where they're afraid what they may hear.
Hmm.
They may not interpret the message. So there's a lot of things that come into play when people do show up and they say, "Yeah, I want a reading," um, and you sit with them, but the message may not come through. As a matter of fact, if you're sitting with two people and you feel that you're reading one person, well, the spirit of the second person that's wanting to leapfrog over
Hmm.
can definitely overpower someone else.
Absolutely.
Depending on the strength of the spirit in the message.
Absolutely. It's not exact for that reason, because, we can only share what we see and what we hear and what we feel. And
Definitely.
we can
Yes.
only
Yeah.
provide so much insight.
Yep.
We're receiving a certain message, or we're communicating with a certain being, and we can only pass on what we know.
Yes. It's a message. Um, just like if somebody sent you an email, it's a
Yeah,
message, and
absolutely.
you can only deliver the mail, in this case, or deliver the message.
Well, speaking of message, is
Yes.
there a message that you want to share with the listeners today?
Um, yeah, I mean, we've talked about in the past that if people feel they want to visit a medium or a seer in one modality or another, that do your homework, make sure that you're open to be read. Take a minute, catch your breath, prepare yourself. That's for anybody looking to get a reading, and do your homework if you can on who it is you're looking to get a reading from. That's important. But as far as spirit, yeah, spirit's all around us. We're going to have a very interesting guest coming up in the next couple of episodes, and her and I won't tip my hand too much about who it is, but she is someone that uh, reads people with angels.
Oh, wow.
And we've talked again, this is nothing new. If you've listened to our podcast, this is nothing new. We all have angels. And some of there are the 12 angels that we'll let this other guest get into, but we also have our own angels, loved ones that have been with us from one time or another, or angels from our past that we may never have known. Could be a grandparent, it could, but they're our angels. And
Mhm.
this is the importance of being open and being ready to see and hear what's going to be said.
Completely. Well, thank you so much, Doug, for taking the time to sit down and chat about mediumship and what it's like to see spirit and experience spirit. It's it's something very close to my heart, and something that's very intertwined with my life. So this has been a great discussion.
And again, we all have it in us, Angie. We all have it in us, I believe.
Hmm.
And again, if you talk to a lot of mediums, and I'll just leave it at that, they'll agree that we all have the ability to see and hear things. And then if you sat down and looked at our first episode where we talked about the 8 clair senses, if you said yes to a couple of them, then you have the ability. How you have to fine tune that is another thing altogether. And you have to almost like declutter your mind when you're trying to embrace spirit. So that's the one message that I would think that I would like to also uh, pass on to our listeners today.
So whether you felt the brush of a presence, or heard a whisper in a dream, or maybe simply sensed that someone was with you, mediumship reminds us that love doesn't just end. It really only changes form. These connections are not about fear or even about spectacle. They're really about healing, remembering, and honestly letting spirit speak when we're ready to listen.
And if you have any questions, we'd certainly like to hear from you. Feel free to reach out to us on our website, perfectlyclear.com. Wherever you are on your journey, trust that the messages meant for you will find you. And until next time, stay open, stay curious, and trust what you feel.